Welcome to Knowledge Hub. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. September 2025. Tension between the US and China has reached a new peak, not with missiles but with tariffs and legal battles. The Trump administration's return brought a hardline stance, escalating economic warfare and targeting China's tech ambitions. Beijing, however, avoided direct confrontation, opting for asymmetric economic responses, using America's own strengths against it. Xi Jinping's government focused on targeted economic pain and strategic patience, surprising many in the West. The world now faces a critical question: is this the start of a painful decoupling, or a dangerous but manageable negotiation? The conflict is about more than trade, it's about the future of global power. As of September 22, 2025, the outcome remains uncertain, but the past months have redefined 21st century statecraft. President Trump wasted no time after his second inauguration, stepping back into the Oval Office with a renewed sense of purpose and a clear agenda. Determined to reshape America's economic relationship with its biggest rival, he set his sights on China, promising to put American workers and industries first. Within days, the administration launched a sweeping and aggressive tariff campaign against China, signaling a dramatic escalation in the ongoing trade war. Tariffs soared to unprecedented levels, up to 145% on some goods. The White House justified these measures by citing years of alleged intellectual property theft, unfair trade practices, and mounting national security threats posed by Chinese companies. The administration also moved quickly to close the de minimis loophole, a policy shift that hit Chinese e-commerce giants like Shein and Temu especially hard. Suddenly, millions of low-value packages faced new scrutiny and higher costs at the border. The pressure didn't stop at goods. It extended deep into the tech sector, with TikTok forced to restructure its US operations or face an outright ban. Officials cited growing fears over data misuse, surveillance, and the app's potential to influence American politics. This multi-front assault was designed to cripple China's export machine, disrupt its powerful tech sector, and force Beijing to the negotiating table on America's terms. Washington's strategy was clear: use the full weight of US economic might to reassert dominance and compel real change in China's behavior, both economically and politically. The administration believed that China's export-driven economy, so dependent on access to American consumers, would eventually buckle under relentless pressure. But this was a high-stakes gamble, one that risked not just the US and Chinese economies but the stability of global markets and supply chains everywhere. The world watched with bated breath as the US pushed harder than ever before, wondering how far this confrontation would go and what the consequences might be. The question now loomed large: would China fold under the mounting pressure, or would it find new ways to fight back and defend its interests on the world stage? China's response was calculated and strategic. No military escalation, just economic countermeasures. Instead of saber-rattling or troop movements, Beijing chose to flex its economic muscles, signaling a new era in great power competition. This approach was not only about avoiding direct conflict but also about demonstrating the reach and sophistication of China's economic influence. Beijing weaponized its dominance in rare earth minerals, disrupting US supply chains and gaining leverage. These minerals are essential for everything from smartphones to advanced military hardware, making the move a direct hit on America's technological edge. The world watched as China reminded everyone just how dependent global industries had become on its resources. Retaliatory tariffs targeted US agricultural exports, hitting Trump's political base and creating domestic pressure. American farmers, already facing uncertainty, now found themselves at the center of a global standoff, their livelihoods used as leverage in a high-stakes negotiation. China also sanctioned US firms and launched antitrust probes into American giants like Google and DuPont. These actions sent a clear warning to multinational corporations. Operating in China came with new risks, and Beijing was willing to use its regulatory power as a weapon. Legal challenges at the WTO painted China as a defender of global rules. By taking its grievances to international institutions, Beijing sought to rally support from other nations and frame itself as a responsible stakeholder, not just a disruptor. Beijing accelerated efforts to reduce reliance on US tech, especially chips from Nvidia, signaling a push for self-sufficiency. Massive investments poured into domestic innovation as China aimed to build a resilient technology sector immune to foreign pressure. The message: China could inflict pain without firing a shot. Economic statecraft had become its weapon of choice, and the world was taking notice. By leveraging resources, legal tools, and tech policy, China showed it had a powerful toolkit. Each move was carefully calibrated to maximize impact while minimizing risk of outright confrontation. The US faced a rival skilled in economic judo, not just brute force. China's tactics were about using America's own strengths and dependencies against it, turning the tables in unexpected ways. The trade war became a contest of strategy, not just strength. Every tariff, sanction, and policy shift was a move in a complex game, with global consequences. Both sides now understood. Economic statecraft could be as potent as military might. The battlefield had shifted from open conflict to boardrooms, courtrooms, and trading floors. The world's supply chains and political alliances were suddenly in play. As nations recalibrated their strategies, the true power of economic influence was on full display, reshaping the global order in real time. As US trade plummeted, China accelerated its pivot to new partners. Exports to ASEAN surged, and trade with Africa soared by nearly 25%, thanks to years of infrastructure investment. China positioned itself as a development partner, winning goodwill in the global south. In Europe, Beijing exploited divisions, offering market access and stable supply chains to keep the EU from fully siding with the US. The result, China's diversified trade blunted the impact of US tariffs. The world economy was no longer centered on the American consumer. China's pivot reshaped global trade flows, accelerating a multipolar world. The US campaign looked increasingly unilateral. China proved there were alternative paths to growth and new alliances to build. Behind the scenes, high-stakes negotiations quietly unfolded in neutral cities like Madrid and Geneva, far from the public eye. These locations, chosen for their neutrality and history of diplomacy, became the backdrop for tense discussions between American and Chinese officials. The talks were less about sweeping agreements and more about managing immediate crises, temporary truces on tariffs, and establishing frameworks for contentious issues like TikTok and the supply of rare earth elements. Each side sought to prevent escalation while protecting their own interests. The TikTok standoff, a flashpoint in the tech rivalry, forced both countries to get creative. The compromise allowed ByteDance to retain ownership, but required that US user data be managed by an American partner, aiming to address national security concerns without a full ban. Both sides publicly claimed partial victory, using careful language to reassure their domestic audiences. Yet beneath the surface, deep mistrust and suspicion lingered, making every handshake feel uneasy. In this climate, direct calls between Trump and Xi became crucial lifelines, especially when tensions over rare earth minerals threatened to spiral out of control. These conversations helped prevent misunderstandings from turning into full-blown crises. A pivotal call in September signaled a possible thaw in relations, with Trump publicly touting progress on both the TikTok dispute and broader trade issues, hinting at a willingness to keep talking. Beijing's response, however, was measured and cautious, emphasizing the need to adhere strictly to Chinese law and avoid setting risky precedents. The gap in messaging between Washington and Beijing revealed just how fragile and tentative the dialogue had become, with both sides wary of making the first move. In the end, negotiation, however imperfect, emerged as the only viable way to manage a rivalry that many feared could become even more dangerous than the Cold War itself. China's resilience caught Washington off guard. The US had bet on China's economic fragility, expecting quick concessions. Instead, China absorbed the blows and retaliated with precision. Rare earth controls exposed US vulnerabilities. China's pivot to ASEAN and Africa showed unexpected diplomatic agility. The trade war meant to isolate China, sometimes left the US looking isolated. China's tech sector, moving away from US chips, signaled a determined push for self-sufficiency. Rather than crippling China, US pressure galvanized its innovation. Legal setbacks at home forced Washington to reconsider its approach. The lesson? China fought back with economic and diplomatic skill, not military threats. In a connected world, power is measured in more than just military might. The US realized it faced a peer competitor, one it couldn't easily outmaneuver. As the dust settles, neither side claims victory, only a fragile truce, marked by uncertainty and cautious optimism. The US-China relationship has entered an era of managed competition, not dominance, where both nations must navigate a complex global landscape. The upcoming APEC summit in South Korea offers a chance for further de-escalation, but deep issues remain unresolved and will require ongoing dialogue. America must reassess its vulnerabilities, especially in supply chains and tech, to ensure resilience in an unpredictable world. Future strategy will blend competition with investment at home, and coordination with allies, forging new partnerships for stability. Economic pressure alone isn't enough. Nuance and partnership are essential for progress in this new era. The world is shifting to a multipolar order, where economic interdependence restrains outright conflict and encourages dialogue. The future will be defined by negotiation. A difficult coexistence between two giants too big to fail, and too connected to truly decouple, demanding constant engagement.